What is going on, everyone? Hello, and welcome back here to another episode of Next Gen Jets. We are your hosts, Connor Long, Chris Grasso, here with you. Saturday late night, 9:30 p.m. start time. We're here every single Saturday talking all things New York Jets. Chris, I'll throw it to you first. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Connor. I'm excited to chop it up and glad to be here for the second week of this program.
For sure, 1000%. Really looking forward to doing, even more stuff with the Next Gen Jets network that we're starting to expand. And we're going to be simulcasting the show on this channel for the next few weeks. But please, I'm about to throw the link in the chat. Our goal, ideally, we're going to have more content here overall, more shows. And we're starting a whole new Next Gen Jets YouTube channel. I just threw that link in the chat. If you guys could click that link, pop over, shoot us a sub, and then come back here, that would be much appreciated. That's where your home for all Next Gen Jets content will be moving forward. We're going to have daily content on that channel, shorts, draft talk. Chris and I will be on the channel, obviously, Josh and Jack, and many special guests. So please go over, click that video, click that link, shoot us a sub. It would be much appreciated. We appreciate all your support here on the program as always. And Chris, looking forward to expanding the network.
100%, man. The more and more we can get our opinions on this team heard, the more hopefully they can hear and do. So
for sure. 1000%. I guess where I really want to start today, it's in the title, an article that came out from our guy Nick Faria, my teammate over at JetsXFactor.com, and it was an interesting take, and that's why I chose it to be this title, because there's a lot of talk of weapon at 7, you want to go playmaker, Tet McMillan, Tyler Warren, those are the names that seem to be dominating the those seem to be the names that are, dominating the headlines. Overall, we've been hearing Armand Membu get tossed around a little bit after the after the combine and the measurables that he came away with. Overall, Chris, Nick went out and he said he thinks the Jets' draft success hinges on on two major positions, and those two major positions affected the trenches. That's right tackle and that's defensive line. He pretty much made his case as to why the two guys on the Jets' radar at 7 overall should really be Armand Membu and Mason Graham. How do you feel about that take from Nick? And would you approve of the Jets potentially trying to go with that route over a weapon?
Well, we know Nick Faria is a diehard Eagles fan, and the Eagles obviously have built the trenches, and he's butthurt that he has to cover the Jets, a horrible team. But I disagree with this article because I think it's so key that we go out and we get a playmaker at 7. We have 4 out of 5 of the offensive line positions solidified. We just need that right tackle who can come in and, fill up the gap this year for us. And D-line, we have a solid D-line. We've seen some depth and another guy who could play next to Quinn, who Derek Nottie arguably could be that guy. It is always good to add young talent to the draft, but I think at 7, our main focus needs to be playmaker. It needs to be a weapon for Justin Fields. So that's why I'm leaning towards Tyler Ward or Tet McMillan at 7.
Look, this is where I am right now, Chris. I don't want Membu. I just don't think the overall value for a right tackle is there. Mason Graham, I would take Kenneth Grant as a compliment. I think he would be a better compliment to Quinnen Williams than Mason Graham would. I mean, you look at a guy like Mason Graham, he's under 300 pounds. Yes, you can run 2 tech, you can run 3 tech, you can run 4 tech with Mason Graham. He has that schematic versatility, if you will. The thing is, he's not that big body that you want to put next to an elite all-pro defensive tackle. And Quinnen Williams, I want to go after the big guys, whether that's you maybe reach on a Kenneth Grant in the first round if you really fall in love with him. You get a Tyleik Williams from Ohio State in the second round, or you get a TJ Sanders from South Carolina in the second round. I'm really looking for someone who has a big presence in the run game and is able to really just clog up overall the middle of the line for this team.
I agree with you on that, but the thing is, I love Mason Graham. Watching his tape, you can see that he knows how to fill gaps. He knows how to be a threat in both the run and pass rush. So Graham would be a good option if we didn't, Graham would be a good option if we addressed receiver and tight end more and weapons more in free agency. But we desperately need tight end and wide receiver. We need a guy who Justin Fields can go to. It can't only be Garrett, because then that's how people like you get the argument that Garrett Wilson sucks
He sucks. Never said he sucks.
That was an exaggeration. But when Garrett Wilson has nobody around him, the defensive schemes around him and everything collapses. We need playmakers. We need other solid guys. So it's non-negotiable to take weapon at 7 at this point, honestly.
I know you, Jack, and I have obviously Jack and I we've obviously been texting. We've been talking since the signing has been made. But I want to get into the Josh Reynolds news, and I know Chris, you love Josh Reynolds. You love Josh Reynolds. So initial reactions on this move to kind of share with the audience here. And where do you want to see Josh Reynolds rank on the Jets depth chart, if that makes sense? Like right now, if he came in, assuming the Jets do move on from Allen Lazard, he would be the wide receiver 2. That's a little concerning for me. Let's say all goes right, you address the wide receiver room in the draft. Where do you want to see Josh Reynolds really averaging out on this wide receiver depth chart?
Worst case scenario 2, but I'm fine with having Reynolds as wide receiver 3. As again, we can see Josh Reynolds. He can go up and he can make contested catches. Obviously, Reynolds is not an elite receiver. He's not a big name, but Reynolds is a guy who he can be a presence. He'll play for his teammates. He'll fight for the coach, and he will be a body that we added to this receiver room. And I like that we're adding bodies. I like that we're not overspending on big names because that's never worked out for us. So I do like the Reynolds signing. I think he can play worst case scenario 2, but best case scenario, he'll fit right in at 3 when we draft our wide receiver 2 in the draft.
I disagree with that. I want him to be my wide receiver 4. Just because this is someone who's coming off a gruesome injury, someone who's had similar, literally almost identical production to Allen Lazard over the past 2 seasons, nearly identical. And this is someone who was shot back in November. Like, my question to you then is, where would you want to see Allen Lazard lining up on your depth chart?
You said you were assuming he wasn't on the team.
I'm just saying, let's say everything goes right, he's on the team. Where would you want to see him on the depth chart?
Allen Lazard. So I don't think Allen Lazard will be back, but if he's back, I would say Josh Reynolds ranking above him on the depth chart, and I'm hoping that we get a wide receiver 2 either through the draft or after the draft in free agency.
So you're probably saying Allen Lazard at wide receiver 4 if he made the team, right? Wide receiver 4.
Yeah.
Wide
receiver. Well, if Corley has a good camp, he could be 4, and Lazard could be 5. If these guys that we have, like, all these underrated, well, not underrated, but all these like back guys in the back of the depth chart, like Irv Charles, Xavier Gibson, Malachi Corley. We'll see how they do in camp and where Aaron Glenn wants to have them at.
Well, I asked you that question, Chris, because Josh Reynolds' numbers have almost been identical to Allen Lazard's over the past 2 seasons. Plus, Josh Reynolds is, coming off like a fatal shooting that happened, not fatal, but an unfortunate shooting that happened this past November in Jacksonville. So I think wherever you would put Allen Lazard on your depth chart, I asked you that because that's where you should probably put Josh Reynolds, because Josh Reynolds is virtually going to be viewed as a replacement for Allen Lazard if the Jets do ultimately move on from the 29-year-old. So what I'm thinking now here, Chris, like, how would you feel if the Jets did this? You have your wide receiver 1, obviously, in Garrett Wilson. You get a 2, whether that's Jaden Higgins in the 2nd or Ted McMillan in the 1st. You get Reynolds could be your 3, Tyler Johnson your 4, Corley your 5, Gibson your 6, and then Charles is that 7th guy you carry on the roster, but he's only giving you special teams value. What would you think of that?
No, I'd be content with that. I think Corley will be higher after he has camp. I think Glenn will look at him and see what he has. I mean, obviously, this coaching staff couldn't get him on the field this year. He didn't have a productive season, whatever that may have been due to this coach. Obviously, we can't trust this coaching staff with anybody. But I think Glenn. I think Glenn will see Corley's potential and his speed, and he'll be all over him. So I think Corley could be up. But besides that, I mean, I'd be good with that scenario, especially when you have Garrett, Tet, and Reynolds. That's a reliable receiver room.
I just don't want to rely on Reynolds too much, Chris, because I know the. Go ahead.
But it's going to be a run first offense. So it's going to be mainly wide receiver 1 and 2. 3 won't be that big of a deal. We just need guys who can be competent.
Here's my thing, Chris. I want a safety net for Justin Fields at some point in this draft. Whether it is you get a Tyler Warren in the 1st round, you get a Harold Fannin Jr., who, Chris, I'm all over him. We were watching his film really, really late the other night. And I really, really like Harold Fannin Jr. I think the biggest thing, because Justin Fields maybe all the time isn't going to be able to push the ball down the field and drop a ball right into Garrett Wilson's hands like we saw kind of happen with Aaron Rodgers this past season. How important do you think it is getting a safety net for Justin Fields who could just dump it off with in the backfield?
I think it's extremely important. I mean, Justin Fields, we know he's not a guy who's going to go through progressions, insanely fast. We know he's not a guy who's going to get to his 3rd and 4th read. So when all in doubt, I want there to be a guy that's open, and when he's not open, he can make contested catches for Justin Fields to throw to. Tyler Warren is a great example of that. And if Tyler Warren is on the board at 7 and this organization doesn't feel comfortable taking Tet that early, then just jump on Warren. Warren is a guy who can help chip the right tackle. I mean, no, not help chip the right tackle. Help chip, whoever's lined up with the right tackle, because we know we're not gonna have like maybe a premium starter there, so he can help block there, and he's a threat in the receiving game. He's a threat in wildcat formation. He's just an ultimate football player. He could come in and be our George Kittle. He could be loved by everyone here, just locker room guy. So I'm looking forward to him. I think they're gonna take Warren when push comes to shove, when all is said and done. I think Warren will be the pick because everything's just felt the right way for it to happen, in my opinion.
Do you want them to double up on the tight end room position, if they want to do that, Chris? Like in the sense, maybe you get Warren at the 7th overall pick, and then you add just a flat out pure blocker like Jackson Hawes from Georgia Tech in the 6th, who I really like. You want them to double up on tight end? Are you okay adding one and then rolling into the season with the Jeremy Ruckert, Stone Smart, and whoever that one tight end is?
I'm okay with rolling into the season with, say, for example, Warren Smart and Jeremy Ruckert. Even though Ruckert is concerning, I don't feel comfortable picking 2 tight ends when we have, a fair amount of holes to address in this team. So what we really need is we need D tackle, obviously tight end, wide receiver, D tackle, and then we need a guy who could slide and play right tackle or guard and maybe move AVT to right tackle. So that's where I'm at. I mean, and you could also pick some safeties later in the draft. So if you really want to go into like late in the draft and you can get another tight end, then that's fine. But depending on where you are, we need to address our premium needs first.
I mean, wouldn't you consider tight end a premium need now, Chris? Like, I understand back in the day it was overlooked as a not premium position, and you kind of fill it with everyone, but especially like with a quarterback like Justin Fields, again, you need a safety net for him. Like, I think tight end's getting overlooked a little bit here.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm not overlooking the value of tight end. I'm saying I don't necessarily want to take 2 because I think Warren, he comes in, he's an all around player, and I don't want to take a second tight end high because we have needs that we have positions of need that we desperately need to address. Mainly wide receiver actually. So if you want to take one later in the round, like 6 or 7, or maybe even 5, when you already have your core guys picked, then fine. But not like I wouldn't want them to pick a second tight end before they address receiver.
I get that, what you're saying 1,000%. I think if you get a Tyler Warren, like for example, I want a pass catching tight end. Like Jackson Hawes to me is the only one I could see them signing who is just flat out a blocker and not a pass catcher. Like Tyler Warren's going to provide some blocking value for you, but he's also going to be a receiver. That's who Tyler Warren is. You're drafting him because he brings some blocking value, 1,000%. But you also get a lot of value in him as a receiver. So that's what I like a lot about Tyler Warren. I mean, this team has a lot of needs to address, Chris, and I get what you're saying there about potentially not trying to double up on any positions. A trade back. This is something that has intrigued a lot of Jet fans. How far would you be willing to trade back, if at all?
Trading back is interesting because I 100% understand the logic if you want to trade back and you want to get more picks to address positions of need because ultimately this draft you need to come away with starters. You need to come away with at least 3 starters and one who's going to make an impact in the first round. So trading back gives you that more picks actually to just hit on guys. But at the same time, if you stick and pick Warren at 7, I'm going to be thrilled with that pick, Warren at 7. So I think if Warren is there at 7, you really have to just think about just taking him. Trading back, you're risking, Warren going. The only way they can trade back, and I'll be happy to, if they trade back and they select Tet, because he was an option at 7 for me. So if you trade back, get maybe an extra pick in the 3rd or 4th, and also get Tet, that's good. But I'm concerned passing on Tyler Warren. I know this tight end class is very deep, but Warren could really be like a big difference maker. And I'm not sure if I want to pass on that.
Chris Sanders is on the board. No one wants to trade up for him. Are you taking him, or are you looking at another prospect?
I would completely ignore that, and I would really, really hope the Jets would do the same. But the thing is, I think someone would be willing to move up for him first off. But if the Jets took Sanders, it would be a tragedy. It would be an absolute disaster. Not only am I not sold on Travis Shador as a prospect, so say he comes in and he is bad, they're tied to him. So that means if Sanders fails, this entire regime is considered a failure. And plus, that taking Sanders this year, makes us not be able to draft a quarterback in an absolutely stacked class next year. So if Sanders there, please trade out or ignore him.
I think he has to at least be in the conversation. I don't think you can completely ignore him. Like I don't want the Jets to take Shador Sanders, but I think he is at least going to enter the conversation. That's what I think is going to happen. I think he's at least going to enter the conversation if he's still on the board when the Jets are selecting at pick 7. But realistically, I don't think that's something us Jet fans need to worry about. I think he's going to be long gone by the time the Jets are picking. I think he might go to the Cleveland Browns with the 2nd overall pick. That's a sneaky team to look out for. Although, maybe they try to maybe Kevin Stefanski tries to make it work with a bridge option, but never say never with Shedeur potentially going to Cleveland. He has to enter the conversation, Chris. Like, if you,
I got him entering the conversation because he's obviously, he's a top guy and he's starting to fall. But if he's falling for a reason. So I mean, the Jets.
You have to do your own evaluation, though. That's the thing. Like, each team has to do their own evaluation. That I think that's what needs to happen. Like, who knows? Maybe Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn fall in love with Shedeur Sanders, and they think that is their guy, and he's the franchise guy moving forward. I think that's a big thing. Just because of the signing of Justin Fields, I don't think that should completely dismiss the potential of the Jets drafting a quarterback. Just because, I mean, Justin Fields ranks 26th in guaranteed money. I've read about this several times in the past few days for Jets X Factor. 26th in guaranteed money among quarterbacks in the league. Plus, Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn are just simply betting on him as a bridge option, and the athleticism, the potential that he's shown. He hasn't solidified himself as a top quarterback in this league. They're hoping he could do that, but the Jets should continue to throw the darts at the wall until they ultimately figure this out.
When the news came out that the Jets were, trying to trade up for Ward, I was obviously heavily against it, and I at that point I was saying, no, just sign Fields and treat him like a rookie, because all these rookie quarterbacks are not going to be good. I obviously, we don't know, and they obviously could end up to be good, but this is not a good quarterback class, and I really don't want the Jets to be risking their entire regime and be risking their jobs, honestly, on a guy who they're not sure of, and take a quarterback just to take them. So I really like Justin Fields, and I'd rather them just roll it with him this year, roll it with him and Tyrod, than add another quarterback when it's not really necessary. You have a stack class coming up next year, so even if Justin Fields doesn't work out, you can either trade up, or you might have a top 5 pick anyway, which I don't think is going to happen, but might have a top 5 pick, and you can pick your guy in next year's draft, whether that be Nussmeier, Aller, or my favorite option, Nico Amalava, or whatever his name is.
Here's the thing, Chris. If they fall in love with someone, they're going to take him. Because they might be tied to that player. They might be tied to that player, yes. But they're either going to have to take a quarterback this year or next year. If they fall in love with someone in this pre-draft process, they're going to take him.
Well, they don't have to fall in love with a quarterback this year or next year, because what if Fields is the guy? I know you guys don't think that's going to happen, but
I'm still drafting a quarterback. If he takes you to the playoffs, you still draft a quarterback.
Why? At that point, you build around him.
No, if he reads you 9-8 into the wild card round, no, you don't build around someone after one.
Well, what are his stats? What are his stats?
No.
What are his stats then? Tell me his stats.
The same stats last year. He's nothing more than Chris. When you say Justin Fields having a good season and going to the playoffs, it means he does nothing with his arm. He pretty much is just a pure scrambler, and he's a facilitator to the point where he's not losing you football games.
How do you know he can't?
Because he's been in the league for 5 seasons, and he's 16 games under 500 as a starter. That's how I know it. He's never. You can't
judge him off his time in the Bears.
I can judge him past his 5 seasons. That's the thing, though. Good players are able to work around that stuff. You always say, but good players are able to work around it. That's the problem.
You can't work around having no offensive lineman and you're running for your life every play. I'm sorry. You know what he did when he had no line? He rushed for 1,000 yards. That is being a good player despite horrible situations. You can't tell me that you're gonna blame Justin Fields' failure with the Bears all on him when they did nothing to protect him.
He's been in the league for 5 NFL seasons.
Not looking past the Bears, where they ignored a line. The Bears ignored a line, point blank, period. So you cannot blame that on him. And then with the Steelers, the coaching staff had to have told him to play conservative. They told him to check it down when in doubt. And
maybe he just doesn't have the arm strength.
No,
or the accuracy, or he doesn't trust his arm. Like this, you need a safety net. Like, you're able to. I have nothing against Justin Fields. He was my number one option. 1,000%. I don't want to have to rely on him to push the football down the field. I want there to be some sort of safety net.
You don't think good coaching can elevate him? He has the arm talent. He can throw over the middle.
He can. When is he going to be able to do it, though? He's been in the league for 5 seasons. That's about. This isn't someone who's been in the league for 2 years.
I think people are just looking at him as the bridge option, and they're ignoring all the upside he has. Not even as just a runner, but as a passer as well. He has good arm strength, and he has
upside. He's never shown it.
he hasn't
He
shown
has
it.
to show it eventually.
What if he's going to show it this year? Good coaching.
How do you know that? How do you know that? Though? Like he was in his offensive coordinator was a former head coach. His head coach was Mike Tomlin, one of the most well-coached football teams that go to the playoffs every single season. He was benched after 6 games and he couldn't make it work there. What tells you that it's going to be able to work and it's a sure thing that this team is, going to be able to go to the playoffs and he's going to I understand I understand he has talent, but he has to show it eventually.
He got benched because they wanted to see what they had in Russell Wilson, and they know
what they had in Russell Wilson, though he's 30-something years old.
No, they wanted to see who was a better fit with their offense.
Clearly, it was Russell Wilson. I mean, Justin Fields really hasn't.
They collapsed. What do you mean? Clearly, Russell Wilson's collapsed at the end of the year. They could have put.
That's what the Steelers do every year, though. It has nothing to do with who the quarterback is. That's what the Steelers do every.
If they could have put Justin Fields back in at the end of the year, they would have. The reason they couldn't have is because it was too late to make the change. Mike Tomlin would have lost the locker room if he changed quarterbacks right at the end of the year. But if they could have, they would have. Trust me.
I hope he's great. There's no guarantee. That's the thing. Like
you're saying there's no chance. I'm not saying there's a guarantee.
I never said there was no chance. I said if I had to put money on it, Justin Fields is going to fail. That's my honest prediction. I don't hope he fails. I hope he does great things. If I have to put money on it, I think there's a better chance the Jets go 0-17 with Justin Fields than they win the Super Bowl with him. That's
fine. But what I was going to go back to is, so you say if they make the playoffs with Justin Fields, you'd still draft a quarterback next year. What are Justin Fields' stats in that scenario?
Same. Let me look at his numbers from last year. Let me see. What did he do last year? 65.8 completion percentage, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. I have to average that out. I don't know what that's.
He was on pace to throw 15 touchdowns and 4 picks last year.
What'd you say?
He was on pace to throw 15 touchdowns and 4 picks and finish.
Yeah, it was a 6-game sample size though.
Yeah, but he was 4-2 in those games though. And the Jets have a good defense, and we're going to be coached better than last year. So look at it as the same scenario as the Steelers. The Steelers had a good defense, and he was facilitating. But I think with better coaching, they can really, Fields has untapped potential, like they said. And with a better coaching staff, less penalties.
He has to show that. How do you know it's a better coaching staff? They haven't proved anything.
Then we have to give him a chance to show that. I mean, can't be. If he goes to the playoffs, I want this team to build around him with their draft picks and not consider taking a quarterback.
It depends how much he does. Like, again, he could be a facilitator and the defense is going to look great. Again, I have to see how the season plays out. We're already talking about building around him. We haven't seen him take 1 snap. Again, we hope he's great. We just don't know. We appreciate you all tuning in. Smash the like, hit subscribe. Appreciate all of your support here on the program. This channel for NY Flight Jets Talk. We're still doing obviously daily content here, but for Next Gen Jets, all of our Next Gen Jets content will be moving over to a new channel. I just threw that link in the chat. Please hop over there for Next Gen Jets. Give us a sub, and that's where our new Next Gen Jets content will be. NY Flight Jets Talk still on this channel. Next Gen Jets will be on that channel, however. So I appreciate you guys. As always, you got any questions, throw them in the chat, pin comment, call into the show, smash the like, hit subscribe. Let's go over to the phone lines. Charles is first up here on the show today. Charles, how you doing?
Good, Connor. Hello, Chris. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Charles, how's it going?
Good. Listen, I understand, Chris. I'm going to talk to you first. Look, I understand you like Justin Fields. I do too. But we can't say this coaching staff is going to be great because they haven't. I'm not trying to sound like a jerk. They haven't done a damn thing. In training camp, they haven't done a damn thing in the regular season. I can care less if we go 0-3 in the preseason. If we win in the regular season, that's all that matters to me. So let's get that because under Robert Saleh, we were so good in the preseason, but come regular season, we would suck. So I'm sick and tired of that crap.
100%, Charles. I'm at this point, I'm not assuming they're going to be great, but I'm assuming anything has to be better than what we had. And the way
I hope so too, man. I'm assuming that, but we can't have blind faith. We gotta be wait and see it. We gotta be patient, but also wait and see at the same time. As for Justin Fields, if I'm just being hypothetical here, or just guessing. If Mike Tomlin stuck with Justin Fields, the Steelers would have probably had the same record as the Ravens last year. 12-5. Justin Fields completed at least 65% of his passes. Yes, a lot of them were checkdowns, but that is not just on him. That's on Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith, from what I've seen with the Steelers, did not do that great of a job with an offensive coordinator. Plus, even though the Steelers' offensive line wasn't very good, it was also a lot of it to do with his offensive philosophy. But Justin Fields, despite that, he threw for 5 touchdown passes, ran for 5 touchdowns, and committed only 2 turnovers, 1 interception, and 1 lost fumble. Plus, let's not forget, in 2022, Justin Fields became the 3rd quarterback in pro football history to rush for over 1,000 yards. The other 2 being Lamar Jackson, who won 2 MVPs and obviously who did it twice, and of course Michael Vick. So we can't ignore that. Plus, Justin Fields has arm talent, and obviously what I like about the son is that he has familiarity with Garrett Wilson, who he had a lot of success with while playing at Ohio State. So now, who I want at number 7, I would want either Tyler Warren. I'm a huge fan of, considering I watched him play against Boise State, or Amon Membo from Missouri. We need to fulfill our right tackle spot. We have a good solid lineup of offensive linemen. We just need to complete the right side. Because Okorafor, from what I heard, is not very good.
Yeah, I think I'll let you go here in a second, Chris. I just think you get better value at the right tackle position in one of the later rounds. And it isn't that Okorafor isn't great. It's the Patriots tried moving him to left tackle last season, a position he's never played before. He didn't earn the starting job, and he struggled. When he played right tackle with the Steelers, first few for 2 seasons, he was really, really solid in pass protection. He's being slept on a little bit. I don't want him to be my starter per se, Charles, but wouldn't rule him out certainly as a serviceable depth option. Chris, what do you got there?
I 100% agree with you, Connor. I like the idea of taking a right tackle and offensive lineman later in the draft. Obviously, we need to address weapon first. But Charles, I want to go back to something you said. I'm not trying to have blind faith. I'm trying to give this team the benefit. I'm trying to give this regime the benefit of the doubt. I think the way Glenn has spoken has shown that he's a disciplinarian. He's a no BS guy. He's not gonna.
I agree, but I'm just saying. Like, I'm not saying you were showing blind faith necessarily. It's just that we need to be more wait and see. Like, we need to see with our eyes. I like Aaron Glenn. My father is a fan of Aaron Glenn. Loved him as a player. Loved the fact that he learned from Parcells. He learned from Sean Payton. And he learned from Dan Campbell. Robert Sutton, who the hell did he learn from?
Kyle Shanahan.
That's what I want to know looking, but who the hell did he learn from?
Kyle Shanahan.
But he was a defensive guy, so he was a D coordinator.
He's coming from that coaching tree, though.
True, but
I mean, look at what DeMeco Ryans did. Like, again, look at the hit rate from those coaches. Saleh was really the only one who missed, if you really think about it. Like, I don't know if I'd call Mike McDaniels a hit, but I would take him over Robert Saleh. DeMeco Ryans certainly a hit. I appreciate the call, Charles. I appreciate all your support here on the show as always. And I thought he made some great points there, Chris. And I think the Okafor signing is getting a little overlooked just because people automatically turn their attention to see what he did with the Patriots last season, but forget the fact he's been a more than serviceable right tackle for multiple seasons in this league.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think he made good points, and Okafor, worst comes to worst, he could start if we say take a guard and we don't feel comfortable moving AVT to tackle. He could start, but if it starts to get out of hand, we're gonna have to come up with a solution fast.
Smash the like, hit subscribe, everyone. Appreciate you tuning in. Call into the show with the pinned comment. Keep your questions coming. Connor Long, Chris Grasso here with you guys on Next Gen Jets. Super Chats membership's also a great way to help us grow here on the show and get you a few raffle entries. Our guy Jack in the building says, or if we get Membu at 7, get Higgins, Bond, or Harris later on, maybe even if we trade down for Golden or Abuka. Chris, thoughts?
I like the idea of trading down for Golden or Abuka. One scenario I would love if they did. This is probably my dream draft scenario, honestly. They take Warren at 7 and they trade back into the first round and get Abuka. That's my dream. And then you take a D lineman later in the draft and get no lineman later than that. But that'd be basically perfect because you get a receiver who can play next to Garrett, who is boys with Garrett, and you want to talk about having chemistry. And yeah, so that's basically what I would want them to do. I don't want them to take Membo at 7. I mean, I'd live and I'd understand if they did it, but still, that's underwhelming to me. I'd rather have the dynamic playmaker in Warren.
David, our Lions fan, appreciate you tuning in. David, a major benefit with Josh Reynolds. He can contribute at all 3 wide receiver positions. On the other hand, Reynolds doesn't offer much on special teams. I mean, I like the versatility that Reynolds brings to the table, Chris. I think that's one of the reasons they signed him. I just still don't feel comfortable rolling into the season with him as a wide receiver too. Like maybe as a low end 3, maybe, but preferably I want him as my 4.
I get that, like 100%. But we're gonna have a run first offense, like I've been saying since the end of the season. Needed them to have a run first offense, and so the low wide receiver position in the depth chart aren't really gonna matter as much. They're only gonna matter for depth. So I rank the Reynolds signing. Reynolds will serve his purpose and maybe even do a little bit beyond that as we see with his versatility, and he can go up and make contested catches. So yeah, I don't. I wouldn't be. I mean, I wouldn't be thrilled if they rolled into the season with him as wide receiver 2. But 3, he can be a solid 3 if you need him to be.
For sure, 1,000%. Eddie, our guy Eddie in the building says Tyler Warren, TE, or the best O-line player. I'm still leaning Ted McMillan. That's where I still am right now. I'm still leaning towards Ted McMillan right now with that pick. I don't think you're getting anyone who has better value. I'd rather take a wide receiver 2 before a tight end 1 or a right tackle, Chris.
Yeah, but the concern is that Ted might be a reach. Don't get me wrong. I'd be absolutely thrilled. My top 2 guys are Ted or Warren, and they're basically 1A and 1B. No, wait, A1 and A2. That's basically where I'm at with those 2 guys. I mean, I'd be fine taking Warren. The concern is that you might be reaching, and the concern is that he's not that fast. Me personally, I'm not buying into that, but I'm saying Warren can be one of the best tight ends in the league, whereas McMillan might not get to that point at wide receiver.
Here's the thing, Chris. I think if you really, really believe in Tet and you believe he could be your wide receiver 2, you take him. I think that's what's going to happen.
I mean, I'd be happy if that happens, but wouldn't you be so more interested in banking that Tyler Warren could become a top 5, maybe even top 3 tight end in this league one day?
I'd rather if you can tell me Colston Loveland is there in the second round. I don't think he'll be. But if you trade back and take Colston Loveland, sure. Harold Fannon's my guy. If you come away with Fannon and Hawes, I think that would be great. I would rather come away with. Well, let me throw this to you first. What would you rather come away with? Ted McMillan, Harold Fannon, and Jackson Hawes, or Tyler Warren, Nick Nash, and Jalen Noel?
The Ted McMillan option.
Perfect. I think that's the route the Jets should take. I want them to go playmaking tight end in the first round, defensive tackle in the second, tight end in the third, and then a tight end in the sixth. Get a couple safeties mixed in there. There's a chance the Jets can address a lot of needs in this draft. Maybe they don't get blue chippers at every single one of those positions, but they can certainly fill a lot of needs in this year's draft.
Yeah, and they're going to have to if we want this team to be as good as I think and hope they're going to be.
Rover comes in, says Michael Mayer would be a good addition to the tight end room. Chris, no, you're a big Breece Hall fan. I know I'm not so much. Rover, I was on earlier with Cole Thompson, and he floated around the idea Michael Mayer for Breece Hall, and Cole and I both disagreed a lot, so I wasn't going to throw that to you, but thoughts on a potential trade for Michael Mayer? Still someone on the younger side, a bit of an unproven tight end. They're saying value right now, a 4th or 5th round pick. At that point, I'd rather just take a tight end in the 4th or 5th round than trade for a guy.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you because the tight end in this class this year obviously is insanely deep, and we know Michael Mayer is kind of getting stuck behind Bowers in that role, and that he was a pick in I think last year's draft, right, or the year before that.
Who? Mayer? Yeah, 2023 draft.
Yeah, so he's kind of been that they haven't gotten to use him a lot. But I'd rather just pick a tight end in the 4th round or around there because there are a lot of tight ends this year that really has some major potential.
Jet Up, our guy Caden says, I believe in Stone Smart. You can believe in him. You don't want to go into the season though expecting him to take on a huge workload, Chris.
I agree with you 100%.
See where we're in the chat. David says, I agree with Chris's assessment that the Jets should pass on Sanders at this time. I think that Sanders and Dart will be available at 7. Certainly no Dart. I know you don't like Dart in the 1st round, but second round, does that make you a little more open to it?
No.
What if the Jets really think he's their guy?
What on tape do they see that makes them think he's their guy?
His moxie? I hate Jackson Dart. You guys know me.
Yeah, so I don't see a scenario where they even see anything that great in him. I mean, so I wouldn't be open to picking a quarterback this year at all. Maybe if you want to throw Jalen Milroe in there late in the draft, if you have to take one, but there's no reason to, in my opinion.
Paul Costa, our Patriots fan, says the Jets can have Joe Milton, but the Pats need 3 number 1 picks from the Jet Airlines. I mean, Chris, talk about someone who's so overrated. Joe Milton comes in one game against a 3rd-string defense that was playing prevent the whole time and pretty much just stat pads, and now they're talking about getting a 3rd-round pick for him. Someone who was a 6th or a 7th rounder a few years ago. It's terrible.
Yeah, you know how much I fall in love with arm talent. You know, you see me with Anthony Richardson. I'm a big Anthony Richardson believer.
Jalen Milroe. Pre-game calls, Jalen Milroe.
That you can't. That was like so long ago. But yeah, you know,
Jameis.
that was like at the Jaguars game, man. It was so long ago. The opinions,
Like
you know,
week 15.
that's pretty long ago. You know, you have to assess what happens week to week, and you know, you gotta base your opinion on what's going on in the world. So at that point, yeah, that's what I thought was gonna happen. But now we have our guy, baby, Justin Fields.
Hayden comes in and says if we draft the tackle at 42 and Warren at 7, I'd love that. I wouldn't hate that.
I wouldn't hate that either. So if we go Warren at 7, tackle at 42, then we have to go either D tackle next, and then wide receiver at round 4. Then you have to get O-line later. For
sure, 1,000%. Dicker the Kicker says best safety net is a running game. Membu at 7. I don't get the value there though. Like I get it. I think a way you could address it though literally is, okay, boom. You get your tight end in the 1st round. You can get an offensive tackle in one of the later rounds. It could even be a guard like Connor Rogers, of SNY and NBC Sports released his mock, and he had the Jets selecting Tate Ratledge in the 3rd round. I mean, I think Elijah Vera Tucker plays such a pivotal role in this offensive line in the sense that you can kind of just plug and play with him.
And again, you don't need us as like a high-end starter at every position to have a good running game, especially when you have a plethora of good running backs. So yeah, I don't think Warren at 7 is worth it. I think we desperately need weapon. I'll say it a million times. Take Tyler Warren or take Ted.
For sure, 1,000%. Johnny Boy says make Ozzie a Jet. Chris, what are your thoughts on Ozzie Trapillo from Boston College?
That's the tackle, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love the idea of taking him. I love the idea of, you know, get Warren and then you take him. He obviously has a bunch of upside. He can come in, you know, play tackle, and you have Warren to, you know, help him out. I think he can really be good, and if we develop him right, you know, he can be a high-end starter for a while to come.
Cadence says make Mason Taylor a Jet. I don't think he's going to be there in the 3rd round, Chris, and I don't know if I particularly want to use a 2nd-round pick on Mason Taylor.
No, I agree with you. I think, you know, say we go. So if we're going Mason Taylor, we obviously wouldn't have gone Warren. So we go Ted, and then we take D Lyman in the 2nd, and then yeah. So I don't think I think there's other guys that's in the same deep tight end class. So I don't know if I'd take Mason Taylor in the 2nd.
For sure, 1,000%. Appreciate you tuning in. Smash the like, hit subscribe. Appreciate all your support here on Next Gen Jets. Starting next week, this show, along with many others, will be transitioning over to the Next Gen Jets YouTube channel, while NY Flight Jet Stock obviously still staying here, so I'll throw the link again in the chat. Please, please, please pop over there. Give us a sub. That's where we will be starting next Sunday and moving forward, so we appreciate all your support. As always, last chance to get your thoughts in here before we wrap. Chris, anything on your mind you want to share? Jets news? Anything up here before we wrap things up?
You know, not really that much. I'm just you know, I'm super stoked about what's to come with Justin Fields, as you all know. I mean, Justin Fields, if he comes in and he takes you to the playoffs and he has good stats, he throws say 22 touchdowns, 7 picks. I think you give him another year to build around, and you wait on taking a quarterback.
Let's see. Jax is off topic, but your opinions on Canes. Just tried it today. LOL. Have you had Raising Canes, Chris?
I've never had Raising Canes. The closest, I'm in Central Jersey, and the closest Raising Canes is like an hour and a half south. So I've not dabbled in the art of Raising Canes.
I mean, the closest one for me is probably New York City, because I'm out here on Long Island, Nassau County.
Locations. I know their sauce is elite, but they're not around enough.
For sure, 1,000%. Ending it with a food topic there. We appreciate you guys as always. We appreciate you tuning in. Smash the like, hit subscribe. I'm back tomorrow. We're all back tomorrow. Me, you, Jack, us and Jack. The OG Next Gen Jets show. We appreciate all your support as always. That'll do it for us. He's Chris Grasso. I'm Connor Long, saying so long here on Next Gen Jets. Jets.